Hey, guys, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a beautiful Friday because we're above ground. Over what, 210,000 Americans we have who have died. And it's just an incredibly grateful place to be above ground right now. I have a very interesting colleague. I don't know how you want to call her, but anyways, this month is Domestic Violence, Intimate Personal Violence Month, and the truth is that sometimes I'm still surprised that this still exists. I remember being like in social work school and a professor of mine telling me that I could not work with domestic violence victims because she felt that I would be triggering. So unfortunately, my guest can't be in the studio today, which this is her chair. But we're going to check out some information about intimate partner violence, and we're going to come back and talk some more.
Wow, I'm glad you're here. I just found out that one of my best friends was in an abusive relationship for so long, and none of us knew anything about it. I'm heartbroken. I thought we told each other everything. Maybe if I had spoken up, she would have talked to me about it sooner. So, here goes. Intimate partner violence, sometimes called teen dating violence or domestic violence, is a pattern of behaviors used by one partner to maintain power and control over another partner in an intimate relationship. An intimate partner is a person's boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, partner, or lover. Intimate partner violence may include different kinds of abuse. Physical abuse may include hitting, kicking, punching, or other kinds of physical violence. Emotional abuse may not include physical violence, but it can be equally as harmful. When someone is abused emotionally, they may be called names, humiliated, yelled at, or made to feel intimidated. The abuser may try to control the other person by telling them what to do, what to wear, or where they can and cannot go. Financial abuse is when a person tries to control and limit their partner's access to money so that the partner will be dependent on them. One example would be if the person discouraged or disallowed the partner to work and make their own money. Another is if the person takes the partner's money or credit cards and refuses to give them back. Another form of abuse is known as stalking and harassment. Stalking or harassing someone may include spying on them or following them around and constantly showing up where they are or refusing to leave when asked. Stalking also can include sending harassing or unwanted emails, texts, or posts. Finally, there is partner abuse that involves sexual abuse. This type of violence is when a person forces their partner to participate in sexual acts or behaviors without their consent or ignores the partner's sexual boundaries. Just because a person is in an intimate relationship with someone doesn't mean that they must have sex with them or do sexual things that they find uncomfortable or demeaning. If you or someone you know is being abused in a relationship, it's important to know that it's never the fault of the abused person, and it's important to ask for help. To get help, you can talk to the school counselor, a social worker, or another trusted adult. A great resource if you need information, support, or advice is the National Domestic Violence Hotline. You can check out their website at www.thehotline.org or call 1-800-799-7233. Remember, domestic violence is not love. Someone who really loves you wouldn't try to physically harm you, control you, make you feel bad about yourself, or force you to do something that you don't want to do. A loving and healthy relationship is about consent, respect, and honoring who you are as an individual.
Until next time, don't forget to visit me at amaze.org or go to my YouTube channel to watch more. Bye!
All right. I love that video because I think that, it helps like just make it very basic what intimate partner violence and domestic violence is. Because the truth is, a lot of us go through this and we don't even realize it. Over 10 million Americans every year report or are under the experience of intimate partner violence. So today I'm excited to have on Miss Shanice Adams, who is going to share with us her story and information. But y'all know I got to get crunk. No, I'm not going to do that because I played this video, so this is enough. So I'm going to bring her right in and we're going to have a conversation about it. Hey, Shanice, how
Hi,
are you?
I'm doing great.
Good, 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 good. Thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule. You are here all the way from Ohio. Uh, I don't know if you heard
Thank
earlier, I talked about your seat that's right here. Nice and warm for
yeah.
you.
Thank you for having me again. Thank you for giving me this platform to speak on my experience. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for being brave enough to share it because I know a lot of people are just kind of like, I've been through something like that, but it's not, I don't know if I want to call it that. And then what if my family knows and, they didn't get to come to my aid? So I'd love to know kind of like how you got here and what it is that you do so that people know.
It took a long time for me to not come to talk about it. It took me a long time to say, okay, well, it happened. I'm more of a private person where it's like, okay, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was a long time for me to just stop saying, okay, whatever about it. So
Okay.
that's what it was for me. And I think the turning point for me was where my mom, she had me speak before my church. And as I was speaking before my church, and I spoke about when I was raped, and I saw in the crowd all these older women,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't the younger women who responded to my speaking, but it was the older women, and seeing how I wasn't the only one who had gone through that, but the older women, and just seeing these older women just break down and crying. That's what it was for me. That's what did it
Wow.
for me. So
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That's powerful. Because one of I mean, I can't speak to the experience of like, white churches, but I can speak to the experience of black churches and being black, right?
Yeah,
And kind of like the whole phenomena of what goes on in our house stays in our house, and that have permeated
exactly.
so many generations, of our
Exactly.
families, and how that kind of like I mean, for people who are spiritual and know what like organized religion, that testimony, I'm sure sent somebody through. Actually, even as I sit here, I recall a very close church family member who was open about her abuse. And I grew up in a very like strict religion. You don't leave your husband. And even though the husband was abusive, was the expectation was that you stay with your husband, like you don't leave your husband, even in an abusive and in a black church, and now this has been like over like 30 years ago, but at the end of the day, I applaud your strength. So your mother encouraged you to get up and stand up in front of church. I mean, how did you get to that place? Because I think a lot of people, a lot of women, a lot of men who go through this don't even sometimes realize they in it. They don't know when they started it. When did it start? What happened?
I don't even think my mom knew what I was going to say because
Mm-hmm.
my mom is a victim of domestic violence. My mom and dad are still married to this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think my mom knew what I was going to say because my mom and dad were in the audience. And my dad was shocked
Mm-hmm.
because the person that I was speaking of, I remember this guy even calling my dad and when I had called the cops, because he was in the military, and I remember him telling my dad, she's trying to ruin my career, and my
Wow.
dad telling me, saying, you shouldn't be saying things against this guy because you're going to get him kicked out of the army and all this other things. So when I remember speaking in front of the church, and my dad literally cried because
Mm-hmm.
here he was, thinking back all those years ago, not believing his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And he was heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
And then, speaking to my mom later on, telling my mom, all those years when you sat there and you suffered through all this abuse. And she remember her telling me, well, I stayed for my children. And I told my mom, I said, I'd rather you had left
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
than to sit there and watch you go through that. I hated my mom as a child because I considered my mom weak. And I remember when I was sat there myself going through, because I went through sexual abuse
Mm-hmm.
and through the hands of this man. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember as I was going through it, how thinking to myself, you hated your mom for going through domestic abuse, and here you are being just as stupid. I remember thinking to myself, you're stupid
Mm-hmm.
because I hated my mom. And then you're with a man you're not even married to and allowing him to do that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the breaking point for me when I felt comfortable enough. Then it was years later after I had already, left that situation. I had gotten married, I had gotten divorced, and where I got to a point where I remember talking to God one night and I'm like, you know what? I have to tell my story. And that's when
Mm-hmm.
I decided, I have to let other people know, because it was even after the time where my daughter had told me that she had been molested as a child. I said, I have to tell my story
Right.
because there's no telling how many other women are out there who feel the way I did.
Uh-huh.
I had gotten to a point where I was tired
Mm-hmm.
pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So, I got done being complacent. I got done being, okay, I don't care anymore. Just tell it. What harm is, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
What,
It's okay. uh-huh. I mean,
what harm is it going to do just to tell the story? It's not
mm-hmm.
going to, I've already been broken.
Mm-hmm.
What more can this person do to me? Just tell the story.
Right, right, right. I mean, the startling statistics that so many men and women don't even make it out with their life, whether that be them taking their own life because they don't have the ability to see, like a new future, or that this person is so violent they believe that hey, taking my own life, is better than having him because I'm not gonna or her because I'm not gonna be able to escape this. Last year, I actually had on a guest speaker who she was open enough to talk about that she was the abuser, that she would abuse her husband or abuse the men that she was with, and so people don't really realize how entangled, I guess that's my new Jada Pinkett word. How when you get caught up
Yeah.
in this entanglement, it just becomes so many things. Like you said, your daughter opened up about her molestation, and it becomes like all of these things, and then kind of,
Yeah.
when did you get
I,
on the other side and take a look back and say, what happened?
well, I realized that when after I'd gone through the abuse, I realized that I started, and it took me, I was taking a psychology class,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember talking to my professor who was also the director of the Rape Crisis Center on campus.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to her about an incident where I had gone out one day with he was a professional golfer. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember telling her about how I woke up, I wound up in his bed.
Mm-hmm.
He had slipped something in my drink. And I was laughing with her. I said, and I made the comment, I said, well, with anybody and I was laughing about his penis size because I told her, I said, I remember everything.
Mm-hmm.
I said, he slipped something in my drink. And she said, she said, I'm glad you have humor about this. She said, with you should actually tell your story. And I told her, I said,
Mm-hmm.
well, I have to have humor about it. I said, because if I don't have humor about it, I'd kill myself. I said,
Mm.
because I said, I have to laugh about it because I said, I would literally kill myself. I said, I don't know how I keep falling in these situations. She said, well, statistically speaking, women who have been raped are very promiscuous. She said, have you ever just thought about the things that you've done? And I really sat down and I thought about it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I realized that throughout, ever since that's, going through that incident, that, and I call it an incident with that individual.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And the incident lasted for years. And I said,
Wow.
ever since I've gone through that incident with that individual, I did become very promiscuous.
Mm.
Even with and that led to the demise of my first marriage because um, I never blamed my first husband for our divorce because it was both of us. I mean, it I cheated on him, and I'm not gonna lie, and it wasn't
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I went out and I wanted to, but it's because I felt like there was always something missing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I always went out and I just felt like I had to do it. And it was because it was that trauma of being, it was not
A hundred percent.
it was being
Mm-hmm.
raped. It
Mm-hmm.
was basically that was rape. And this guy, that individual, he would always tell me, and I'll never forget it as long as I live. He would always tell me, well, you might as well give it to me because if you don't, I will take it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so from that point on, after I left that situation,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I would always try to find something to fill a hole that I felt was missing. And for me, it was always sex. And I was very promiscuous.
Mm-hmm.
And so, talking to my professor, she said people who are raped, they either fall into two categories. They either shut themselves off or they become very
Mm-hmm.
promiscuous. And I just started looking back on my life, and that was always me. It was jumping from one person to another person to another person to another person. Now, I wasn't having sex because I was enjoying it. I was having sex because I felt like I was missing something in my life.
Honey, you call it an incident. I call it an experience. You said this went on for years.
Yeah.
This was an experience that went on for years. And I think sometimes what people don't understand as we kind of like move forward to like what you just talked about being promiscuous, and people were like, oh well, why would, if you're traumatized, why how would you be this way? But when that becomes a normal way of of negotiating a relationship, if that's what you become to expect as a normal part of relationships, right? People have to understand this. When that becomes a normal way of getting of what you expect in the relationships, then when you're with somebody who's loving, who's caring, who's nurturing, who's respectful, who recognizes your needs, then you're like, hold up, what's wrong with you? I'm not, because now I'm not satisfied because I'm so used to that now normal thing. And then transforming your brain from that. So that's amazing that that you opened that up to a professor, somebody who I mean, I don't know that I would have had that much strength, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And it's like, because I got to a point where it's like I had to, I've never been one to, well, I take that back. Well, like I said, it's like I just didn't care or shy away from speaking. If somebody's asked me a question, yeah, I'm going to answer the question. I've never been one to shy away from answering the question because it got to a point where I just didn't care.
Uh-huh.
So it's like when we spoke of it
Mm-hmm.
after that incident happened with the golfer, I just didn't, it got to a point where I just didn't care.
Uh-huh.
So I just when I was telling her about it, and like I told her, I had to laugh about it because if I didn't laugh about it, I would cry and then I would kill myself because it was just not, it was nothing else left. It was either laugh or cry.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I when I got to the point where I started to tell my story to everybody, well, when I got to the point where I felt like I could tell my story to everybody, it was when I think I was 36.
Mm-hmm.
No, I was about 30. Yeah, I was around 36. And I had gotten to the stage where I literally reached out to that person who had raped me
Mm-hmm.
he raped me when I was 17.
Mm.
I'm sorry, he raped me when I turned 18. He stalked me when I was 17. He raped me when I became legal.
Right.
And
Wow.
I had sought that person out for an apology
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to hear him say that he was admit to it and hear him say he was sorry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. He didn't say he was sorry. He gave me an excuse, but I found solace in the fact that he met a woman who made him feel close to what I felt when I was young, of how he made close to
Mm.
how he made
Mm.
me feel when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
found solace in that. Um, so that's when got finally found, I don't want to say the courage, but I found I don't even say closure, but I found, I don't even know what the word is, but I,
It sounds like a word from the Lord, my girl.
yeah, I'm like, you know what? I just need to tell I just need to tell somebody, hey, this is how this person was. You know what? That's what it was. I need to tell everybody, okay, this person that everybody thought was, because everybody that knew us during that time thought he was God. Only one person
Mm.
in our entire circle knew he was a piece of crap. Only one
Mm-hmm.
person.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And only thing is, she could never understand why I could not break away. And I felt like and no matter how much I tried,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't outside of my house and stalk me outside of my house when I was living with my parents. Like I said, we weren't legal then.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's like no matter, I could not break away from this person no matter how much I tried to.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So it's like I finally was able to say, okay, everybody, including my dad,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, this is how this person really was. Now I can finally say, this is how, this is what this person did to me.
Mm.
This is what this person did to me. This is what this person had been doing to me all those years. Um, when you came to me and asked me,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'll say thank you for this platform. It's because my sister came to me this summer.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Shanice, you got a little frozen. I hope she didn't get disconnected. I keep hearing that. I keep trying to not have this mic up in my face, but I know it sounds better when I'm closer to the mic. But hopefully, this is much better. Hopefully, my girl Shanice is reconnecting. I want to give a shout out. Thanks, James Spivey Blake. Yes, I mean this is a really riveting story. I'm really hoping that she can reconnect. Is Shanisha there, girl? Um, what else we have? Davina. Hey, you got cut off, Alvi. You there? Shanice, are you there, Shanice? Are you there? Can you hear me, girl?
Yeah.
Okay. This the child is Wi-Fi is a mess. Wi-Fi is a whole mess everywhere in the world. People don't really realize like how crazy Wi-Fi comes in and goes out. It'd be like I'm here 1 second and 1 second I'm not. But yeah, I was giving a shout out to James Spivey, who said good morning. Blake, who said good morning. Powerful story. My girl Ira from South Africa. It says like, wow, thank you for sharing your story. Some of the things Abel, I'm sorry that happened to you. Faith Michael says wonderful. And then Davina said Wesley, it's hard to hear you because my microphone, I don't always like it being in my face. I'm trying to be like, eh. So yeah, so you were thanking me for the platform, and then you were saying that your sister connected with you and a conversation. So please go back to that because I am loving this, hearing about this, and I think that again, this is liberating for somebody, even if it's for one person. Then then we've done what the mission is helping people get out of this situation.
Oh, okay. Well, it was this summer. My
You there?
Yeah, I'm here. It disconnect.
I don't know.
I have one, two sisters. I think, yeah, five, 4 or 5. My sister,
Mm-hmm.
she says to me that she was blaming me for things that happened to her in high school, and they were really petty things.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, she was saying I wasn't there for her as a sister in high school, and she wanted me to apologize to her, and
Mm-hmm.
I told her, I said, I can't apologize to you, because during the time that she wants me to apologize to her for, I'd been raped. And I said, I refuse to apologize for not being there for you
Mm-hmm.
because we are less than a year apart. I said, because I am not, and I told her, I said, I'm not, number one, I was not responsible for you.
Mm.
I said, the things that you want me to apologize to you for are petty. I said, because while you were going through normal teenage things, I was being placed in adult situations. So
Mm.
I'm not going to apologize for not being responsible for you
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
normal teenage things. I said that wasn't my responsibility. Rather than you asking me what is going on with me or asking me what I was going through, you place your burdens on me. It's not my responsibility to take care of you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm your
Mm-hmm.
sister, not your guardian.
Right.
But
Right.
that made me think about, that brought me back to that period. Because again, like I said, that was around the time that, again, he stalked me
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then raped me. So I had a lot of things going on between the time I was 17 up until the time I left to go away to college.
Mm-hmm.
And so while I'm trying to get away from my stalker slash rapist, my sister, which I didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
was depending on me to be her bigger sister. So I mean, it was a lot to deal with, to think about this past summer,
Mm-hmm.
that she was mad at me, to find out she was mad at me for being a 17/18-year-old victim of sexual assault
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
while not being her bigger sister.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like, and it just, and she's, I mean, to this day, she's still upset with me, which she's trying to work out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm trying to it just brought back onto me trauma
Mm-hmm.
from that
Mm-hmm.
time
Mm-hmm.
that I'm like, how can you expect for me to
Right.
you
Right.
know,
Right.
at this time I'm still trying to navigate that. I'm like,
Exactly.
wait, what?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I'm literally just, like I said, not even what, 5 or 6 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
told everybody in the packed church that I was raped as a
Mm-hmm.
teen, and now you just bring up 3 months ago that
Mm-hmm.
you're mad at me because during that time because I wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
bigger sister.
You.
So
Mm-hmm. You know, it's so what really amazes me is how multi-layered all of this becomes. Like people have hurt emotions. Well, why didn't you tell me? I thought we were really close. We were best friends. I was your little sister. You could tell me anything, and all of this stuff. And people have needs in our lives, right? While we're
yes,
experiencing like things and trying to deal with it, and you're trying to process this all on your own. You know, one of the things that I loved about the video that I showed, and I love that you talked about it because people don't really realize it because it's so subtle. Girl, this stalking thing, you know, and now that in the age of social media, you know, stalking goes to a whole other level. You know, they can find out where you live, they in your inbox, your DMs, and we're so used to saying, "Oh, that's cute." You know, I really don't see him, but you know, he
yeah,
hit me up every morning, and he's constantly. And that's not normal. That's kind of like how it starts. Like so,
it does.
so how did you feel as this stalk? If you can recall, how did you feel as this stalking was going on? Was you like, oh, I like this attention from like this gentleman, or what?
as as a 17-year-old sheltered girl, and I say sheltered because I stayed in the church a lot. I was very naive.
Mm-hmm.
This he was older. I would like I said, I was 17. He
Mm-hmm.
was 24. He was in the military. The only boyfriend I'd ever had was when I was in the 10th grade, and he was in ninth grade.
Mm-hmm.
So other than that, he was the first man I'd ever that number one that I'd ever known. He had a really nice car.
Okay. Uh huh.
He dressed nice.
Mm-hmm.
He was
Mm-hmm.
articulate. I was considered a nerd in high school because I was very smart. Um, Guys didn't show me attention in high school because, like again, I was very smart. I mean, I was I took all AP classes. I mean, I really wasn't um very looked at. So
Mm-hmm.
my
Mm-hmm.
parents weren't rich. So like I said, I stayed in church. We were in church on Sundays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, all
Mm-hmm.
day on Sundays. So he introduced himself to my parents. My parents liked him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I like the attention. And then the week after I turned 18, he picked me up from work and he raped me in the front seat of his car. And I mean, I didn't know. I mean, it's like it's I can honestly say I'm glad today that we're teaching girls that no means no,
Right.
because
Right.
when I was younger, I was always told that when you dress a certain way, you ask for it. When you put yourself in a situation, you ask for it. Be either way, when you're not where you're supposed to be, you ask for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So when it happened, I was confused. And I basically said to myself, well, you asked for it. You put yourself in that situation, you asked for it. So you wanted it. Even though you said no 3 times, you basically, that no was a yes because you put yourself in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what was funny was that the week before, he had gone to my job and he had gone to my job looking for me.
Mm-hmm.
And he had gone out with one of my coworkers who was a Caucasian girl in college.
Mm-hmm.
He raped her, and she was scared. And I noticed she had started avoiding me. She
Mm-hmm.
didn't tell me until 2 months later that he raped her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't believe her. And it wasn't until probably a year later when he got started being really mean, that I thought about what she had told me.
Mm-hmm.
And I said to myself, you should have ran then. But yeah, it's like, yeah, it was at the beginning when I received all the attention, I liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because nobody had ever shown me attention before. Nobody had ever bought me gifts before, but he did it. It was subtle. How he moved in was subtle. It started when he raped me in the front seat of the car.
Mm-hmm.
It went from that to telling me how to dress, um, how to wear my hair. You couldn't cut your hair. Your
Mm-hmm.
clothes had to have creases in it. It was cute because things, little things started were cute when he'd get out of the car, and oh no, you stay in the car, and he locked the door after he get out of the car, and I was like, oh, that's cute. He doesn't want anybody to try to take me out of the car. No,
Yeah.
he doesn't want you to get out of the car.
Right. Right.
And then the threats came. We'd be riding in the car and we'd be driving through Fort Bragg and he'd tell me, and if you've ever heard anything about Fort Bragg, Fort Bragg is the largest open military base in the world.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I know.
And it's heavily wooded. So he'd say, out of the blue, he'd say little things like, I could kill you and dump your body and nobody would ever find you.
Wow.
So after that, immediately after that, like a week later,
Mm-hmm.
I got my name tattooed on my body just in case he killed me, so somebody would know who I was.
Uh-huh.
Um, he would have he would cheat on me and tell me, have girls try to fight me. I don't know how they would find my number, but
Mm-hmm.
they would call me and ask me, do I know him?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see, he gave me an STD.
Mm-hmm.
He'd come up with STDs and then call me and curse me out for giving it to him, and I wouldn't even have the STD. So he'd out himself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It would be so many things. When I got pregnant with my daughter, thank God
Mm-hmm.
she was not his.
Mm-hmm.
He would call me at all hours of the night and tell me if I didn't tell my parents, he would out me.
Mm.
It was if I when I start dating somebody else, he would hide out in the woods of my home
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and call me from his car and ask me who was at my house, and I'd say, well, my girlfriend is here. He'd be like, yeah, well, if she's there, well, whose silver car is that in the yard? I lived in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, well, how do you know what kind of car it is? Because he would literally park his car like a mile away and then hike through the woods to see the spot on my house. So it was like that's how it
Wow.
escalated.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
I accidentally answered his phone one day at his house, and it was just a habit. I
Mm-hmm.
answered the phone, and he asked me, did I answer the phone? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, what did you say? I said, all I said was a hello. He didn't believe me, so he drugged me off the bed, and I hit my head on the concrete, on the floor, which had concrete underneath. Um, so it's like a lot of the things, he would use sex as a weapon.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if he was mad, he wouldn't hit me, he'd rape me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was a lot of things.
Right.
So yeah.
Right. And I really appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to be really like open about all of the layers, because I think sometimes people don't automatically recognize some of the things. Like you talked about the fact that he would cheat on you and then have girls to call you and to try to beat you up. And people don't really recognize kind of like how that's a part of the control. Like that's a part of the control. Like when they feel so confident and so comfortable because they have, like, in some ways, like recognize like the self-esteem or the lack of self-esteem, or like that they have control, that they go out and they groom others, and they create like this own sense of yourself where you're like, well, what makes her better than me? Why would he choose me? But then he comes back and says, I love you, or vice
Exactly.
versa. And people don't really recognize that. They're like, oh, well, he's a cheater, man, cheat. No, he has his control and he's exercising this control. And you're in an abusive relationship. It may not be physical, it may not be sexual, but it's damn sure is verbal and emotional. And sometimes that can be even more significant. So I really appreciate that. What is people's reaction when you share your story?
Why? Exactly. They'd be like, why? What?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and some people, some of my friends who knew him, they'd be like, why? And I had a friend who she married, she married a her ex-husband. When I met her ex-husband, she knew this guy, she knew my abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And when I
Mm-hmm.
met her ex-husband, I told her, I said, you married him. I said, your ex-husband is just like him. And her ex-husband was just like my abuser.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first met her, I told her, I said, run, because I said, he was exactly like this man. And I tell her, I said, it's like, you know how he was. You married the exact same person.
Mm-hmm.
Run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And 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 I mean, and honestly, we hated each other because I knew this person. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it was just like looking at the exact same person I had escaped, and to see my friend marry what it broke my heart because
Right. Right.
she knew what I'd gone through, and to see that, and I knew why she married, because I knew why she married him.
Mm-hmm.
But to see her married what I had escaped, it broke my heart.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like a lot of people, they were like, why? And it was hard to at the time, it was hard to explain, and it
Right.
wasn't it wasn't because I loved this person. It was more like I felt like I was, I don't want to say trapped,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but more like I was
In some ways, I feel like it's confused. Like, what do I do?
confused.
Yeah,
Yeah,
confused. It's like
it's
a
like
confusion.
I couldn't,
Uh huh.
it's like this person has you,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
even when I would leave, this person would call me and ask me where are you at? And
Mm-hmm.
before I even thought about it, I was just like, oh, I'm blah 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 blah. And after I did it, and I'm like, why are you telling him
Right.
you're
Right.
gone, you're free? Why are you telling him where you at?
Right.
And my even after I got married to my first ex-husband, he would be confused and say, why does he have such a hold on you?
Mm.
And it was hard to explain because I tell him he doesn't have a hold on me. And it's like, well, how did he get our number? And I couldn't explain it because I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
I called him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, why did you call him? I don't know. And it's like
Right.
I didn't call him to ask him, to come over, or I called him to ask him. I'd call him to say, hey, or just call, and I don't know why.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
I'd run into him at the mall or something, and I just speak to him. That's it. And it's like this person has this whole, because you're like conditioned. That's the
Mm-hmm.
word.
Mm.
You're
Yes.
conditioned.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And it's person has, because like I said, I met this person when I was 17 years
Mm-hmm.
old.
Mm-hmm.
And this person has groomed you and trained you
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
just do whatever they say. I mean, this person has embarrassed me.
Mm-hmm.
I remember one day I was at, we used to have phone booths. I was
Mm-hmm.
at a phone booth one day
Uh-huh.
talking to this guy from Belize. And we were talking about Belize, and he was telling me about his country and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my abuser pulls up out of nowhere. I don't even know where he came from. I guess he had been driving down the street and saw me.
Mm-hmm.
He
Mm-hmm.
pulls up and says to this guy from Belize, "I'll let you have sex with her for $50."
Girl. Wow.
And I was so embarrassed and I was
Wow.
so hurt. And the guy from Belize was like, "Oh my God." He was embarrassed for me.
Right. Right.
And he says, "Is that your boyfriend?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, how does he know you?" And I said, "That's my ex-boyfriend." He said, "Well, why would he say something like that about you to me?"
Mm-hmm.
I had no answer,
Mm-hmm.
but he would embarrass me like that to people
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because that's how he was.
Right.
I mean, he would just show up out of blue anywhere
Right. Right.
and
Wow.
say things like that.
Wow. I just want to go to the comments right quick. We got Iris said, "Girl, I thought I went through it, but your story is crazy. I'm crying." Um, so Derek is in shock to think that he was setting the scene and waiting until you turned 18 to make his move. The plot is just hard to swallow. I mean, it really, and I think that again, just like what we do know is it sounds so bizarre, and I think a lot of times it is sometimes the person even kind of realizes, how did I get myself so much into the thick of this? If I leave, nobody's gonna believe me, because it just seems so bizarre and so real. And I would love to hear about how your journey to heal has been, because I'm sure that's definitely been a significant part of your experience.
It I have to be I've had to be careful
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I find myself, it's like you, especially because I've been married. I'm going through my second divorce now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I have to be careful when I date people. Because I have a tendency to want to date men who are um going through things, in for lack of a better word,
Mm-hmm.
who
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
who are going through things. And
Mm-hmm.
um I just started back dating again this year, and I've
Wow.
noticed that there are I've ran into guys who are um they are abusive. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, luckily for me now, I can see this. I can see the signs. I can
Mm-hmm.
see the signs
Right.
early.
Right.
So,
Right.
and I
Right.
know how to steer clear of them.
Good.
Also, talking helps. I'm not as, I I've been called naive because I do like to talk. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to continue talking because I don't. I'm determined not to fall back into that situation or into that again, because
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
not good for me, and it's not definitely not good for anybody that
Right.
I decide to get into a relationship with again, because I would rather die first. I'm not gonna be that type of person again. I'm not gonna put myself through that. I'm not gonna put my
Mm-hmm.
family through that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not. I refuse to, because it was hell. And then to have to the after effects of doing that, because I put my body at risk,
Mm-hmm.
just because of what I went through with this person. And I'm lucky because you have all how people are out here HIV positive,
Right.
and I'm just lucky that I didn't catch anything that was a death
Right.
sentence.
Right.
I'm lucky that I don't have anything that I have to carry for the rest of my life because of having to go through this trauma with this
Right.
person. So,
Right.
I mean, I thank God every
No.
day that I didn't because I was out here wilding. So, but yeah,
Ah, girl. Well, thank
yeah,
you, thank you, thank you, thank
you're
you, thank you,
welcome.
Ashay. All of those things, I mean, I really appreciate this, and I mean, there's so many comments on Instagram, and I forgot about my folks over at LinkedIn because my thing doesn't bring across my LinkedIn chat or something like that. But somebody said there's so many layers to your experience, and thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Before this thing cuts off, because we're almost out of time, I would love for you to tell people about kind of like how they can get in touch with you. I know you sent me a link, unfortunately, and I'll put it in the comments last night about what they can do to contact you, or I think you're another website.
Oh, I have a friend. Her name is Listen to Lita. She's on Facebook. She has a page on Facebook. She is a writer. She's very outspoken. I love her. I listen to her all the time. I love her to death.
Hmm.
I also have a Facebook page, but I just mostly do jokes. Um, but yeah, I encourage everybody, if you have a story to tell, no matter how big or small, just tell your story because there's
Right,
always somebody out there listening.
right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Shanice. I really appreciate it. You have an
You're
amazing day.
welcome.
All right.
Thank you. You do the same.
Thanks. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for sharing your day, starting your day with me here in the studio. I mean, a very powerful story. I know we're over time. I love you and have an amazing weekend.